All right, here we go. I'm here at the shipper. Just picked up the trailer. Got to send in my macro real quick. And then we are headed to Bedford Heights, Ohio. Now today, I got one goal. I'm already set up for this load and I got a pre-plan for the next load. I got to shoot up to somewhere else in Ohio. I can't pronounce the name of it. We're gonna pick up there after we drop this one off in Bedford Heights, and then we're headed back down to Radford, Virginia. Now, if I hammer down and I do this right, I should be able to shut down at the house tonight for my 10-hour break, which will be great because the old lady, she's missing the big DZ over here. We should be able to make this happen. Just depends on the shipper and receiver. I got a live unload in Bedford Heights, and then I have a live load in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, before I can head back down south to hopefully shut down for my 10-hour break at home. I'm gonna try and surprise her. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but we have a pretty good chance as long as I do everything I can. So let's try and make this happen. All right, just got the scale ticket in case the feds try to mess with me. Now we're on our way up 77. Bedford Heights, Ohio.
Turn left on I-77 North.
Got 367 miles to the destination. Weather looks good. Should be a nice, easy trip. Oh, that's a cool truck. I like those prime trucks, man. Some of them guys got some cool wraps on their trucks. Big Walker Tunnel. They got some tunnels in Pennsylvania that are pretty cool. They got lit up arrows on the ground. I mean, lit up arrows aren't that cool, but it looks cool when you're in the tunnel. All right, here at Love's, getting some fuel, and then back on the road. Got 209 miles to the destination, 4 hours and 34 minutes before I have to take a half-hour break. So far, so good. We're on track to make it home. Just got to keep on pushing. Okay, back on the road. No time to mess around today. I'm trying to make it home tonight, just for a 10-hour break. I have enough drive hours to get home. It's the 14-hour clock that I'm worried about. See, I have to get live unloaded here and live loaded at my next stop. And if the receiver and shipper take too long to do that, it's gonna make my 14-hour clock cut below my 11-hour drive clock. Then I can't stop it. You know what? Let me show you. Okay, this is the DOT clock. You see 4 clocks here. I have a 70-hour clock, 14-hour clock, an 11-hour clock, and an 8-hour clock. So how this works is the 70-hour clock means I can work 70 hours in 8 days. I have 8 days to work this 70 hours. Every day that I start working, I have 14 hours to work from the time I start my clock You count the 14 hours, and then I'm done. I can't do anything else. That's every day. In that day, in that 14-hour work day, I have 11 hours to drive. Whenever I log in to drive and I start driving, I have 11 hours to drive. During these 11 hours of driving, I have to take a half-hour break within 8 hours of driving. So, let me run down a typical day for you. I start my clock at 12 a.m. I have until, once I start that clock at 12 a.m., my day ends at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, 14 hours from 12 a.m. So let's say I start my clock at 12 a.m. I'm on duty. I do my pre-trip 15 minutes. So I do a 15-minute pre-trip, and then I drive for 7 hours and 45 minutes. And I log out off duty at exactly 8 hours. I have to be off duty for half an hour before this 8-hour clock resets. Once I'm off duty for a half hour, I get my whole 8-hour clock back. Now, I don't have 8 hours to drive because I just drove 7 hours and 45 minutes. After my half-hour break, I have 3 hours and 15 minutes left of my 11-hour driving clock. So let's say I do my half-hour break, and then I continue to drive my 3 hours and 15 minutes. Once I drive those 3 hours and 15 minutes, I'm out of time. I have no more time to do anything. I'll still have 2.5 hours left on my 14-hour clock, but I can't do anything. I can be on duty, but I can't drive. So in order to reset my 14-hour clock, I have to be off duty for 10 hours. I either have to be off duty or in the sleeper berth. Once I do 10 hours straight of being off duty, my 14-hour clock resets and my 11-hour clock resets. And during those 10 hours that I am off duty, I'll do 30 minutes off duty, which will reset my 8-hour clock. Now, the on-duty hours that I worked that day, whether it was driving or just on duty, like if I was getting fuel or something, I wouldn't be logged in as driving. I'd just be logged in as on duty because I'm still working. I'm just not driving. So all of my on-duty hours for that day come out of my 70-hour on-duty clock. Now, over the period of 8 days, I have 70 hours worth of on-duty hours that I'm allowed to use. Once I run out of hours on my 70-hour clock, like for instance, I just got off a 34-hour reset. I only had, when I started my 34-hour reset, I had, I think, 2 hours and 34 minutes left on my 70-hour clock. Well, that's not a lot of time, because even though my 14-hour clock reset and my 11-hour clock reset and my 8-hour clock reset when I did a 10-hour break that night, I only had 2 hours and whatever it was. We'll just say 2.5 hours. I only had 2.5 hours left on my 70-hour clock, which meant that's all I could do, whether it was being on duty or driving. So I took a 34-hour reset to reset my 70-hour clock. So you have to be off duty for 34 consecutive hours. And once I hit that 34-hour mark, all of my clocks reset. My 70-hour clock reset, 14, 11, and 8. That's pretty much the gist of how it works. There's other things like 8-2 splits, 7-3 splits, where you don't have to stay off duty for 10 hours straight. You can split it between 8 hours and 2 or 7 and 3. That's more complicated stuff. This is the basics though. This is how our clock works. So that's what I mean when I say I have to take a 10-hour break. It's because I'm either out of driving hours for that day or I'm out of on-duty hours for that day. Now, I have 4 hours and 1 minute left of driving time today, and I have 5 hours and 31 minutes left of my on-duty, my 14-hour clock today. the 14-hour clock doesn't stop. See, now I only have 5 hours and 30 minutes. I'm off duty right now because I'm getting unloaded. This clock will stay running. When this 14-hour clock goes below my 11-hour clock, then my drive time is not what I'm concerned about anymore. It's my 14-hour clock. I can stop my drive clock by logging either on duty or logging off duty. That'll stop the driving clock. This 14-hour clock doesn't stop. So I'm hoping that this shipper, this receiver that I'm at, and the shipper that I'm going to after this don't take long enough to make this clock go below this clock, because I have enough hours to drive to the shipper and to drive home. But if this clock cuts below that, then that's kind of pushing it, because this one doesn't stop, and I need all these hours right here. I need 4 hours to make it to the house. So they're already in there unloading me right now, so hopefully we can make it to this next shipper and everything works out fine. But this is how the clocks work. Been here for an hour and a half. It's not looking good. On our way to the next shipper. Okay, I got 3 hours and 28 minutes of time left on my 14-hour clock, so that keeps ticking no matter what. I just backed into the dock at the shipper. I just left the receiver, came straight over here. So what I got to do right now is I got to send in my macros for the last load, saying that I'm empty and that I left and end that trip. Then I got to send my macros for this trip, which is begin trip and arrived at the shipper and all that. Then I gotta fax in all of my bill of ladings for the last load. Then I gotta start all of my paperwork for the new load, and then I should be good. And then all I gotta do is wait to get loaded. He already gave me the bills, which was cool. He must have seen I was in a rush or something. So he gave me the bills. As soon as they're done, they're gonna flash their little forklift lights at me back there, and I just pull up, close the doors, and skedaddle. And hopefully we can do this. I don't know how much I'm getting, but this place usually doesn't load me with too much, and it's light, so that'll help out on the way back. It's 133 miles to the truck stop by my house, so as long as I got 2 hours and 20 minutes just to be safe, I should be good. That gives me 1 hour for them to get me loaded. Okay, that's it. We're out of here. Loaded, sealed up, lock on the trailer, 133 miles to go. We got 2 hours and 47 minutes.
In 1/4 mile, turn right on Front Street.
We should be good. As long as traffic's good, we should be sleeping in our own bed tonight. Wish me luck.